Welcome in, everybody, to the Mountaineers Now postgame show. I'm Schuyler. Callihan. Joining with me is Christopher Hall, West Virginia, falling in Norman, Oklahoma, to the Oklahoma Sooners, 77-76. Game was a little close there at the end. West Virginia obviously had a chance to actually win the game multiple times, but again, free throw shooting, the storyline in this one. So let's go ahead and jump right into those numbers. Mountaineers from the free throw line, 8 of 16, 50%. That's not going to get it done. This has been the same story for 3 of West Virginia's last 4 losses, or I guess you could even say maybe 4 of the last 5. Rebounding edge, 29-19 in favor of Oklahoma. Oddly enough, West Virginia shot 31 of 55, which was much better than Oklahoma's 25 of 45. So they got more chances. They made more shots. But again, the free throws pretty much the difference there. And the stat leaders for West Virginia, Trey Mitchell, 16 points, 5 rebounds. Joe Toussaint, 14 points coming off of the bench. And then for Oklahoma, Grant Sherfield chipping in 22 points for the Sooners. So, Chris, this one was kind of a different style game. It felt like it seemed like Oklahoma, I think they led from the opening tip on, and West Virginia had multiple chances to take the lead and then ultimately win it there in the second half, but just couldn't get over the hump. They tied the game up several times, but just couldn't get over the hump. So just your thoughts on this.
Yeah, free throws, again, still an issue. I think the other stat to look at is rebound. Out rebounded by 10. Oklahoma seemingly looked like they had 20 offensive rebounds, but you look at the numbers, they only had 6. And I swear 2 or 3 of them there came at that last minute of the game. You got the stops, and then you just allowed them to get extra possessions. I think they went to the free throw line both times. They got offensive rebounds, so they gave themselves extra opportunities. So credit Oklahoma to continue to battle. Some of that was just West Virginia crashing the boards, overcompensating. The long rebounds, guards or veteran guards, they got to know better than that. We talked about it before about long rebounds. And really, that was it. I mean, there was some bad decision making at the end, but you make your free throws. That doesn't matter. You get those. You don't allow those 2 or 3 offensive rebounds in the final minutes. Doesn't matter. You put yourself in a much better position. So this group, they're close. They shot a lot better today. They still need better ball movement. The ball stuck a little bit, but you look at their turnovers; they only had 5. They've cleaned up the turnovers. So you look at this team, it's a tough start, 0-5. New going into the season, that start of Big 12 play was going to be hard. Don't think anyone kind of predicted 0-5, maybe 1-4, 2-3, to kind of get their feet wet. This is a whole new team. I'm still optimistic on them making the tournament. They have started 0-5 before. That was when Emmett was a freshman, and they turned it around that year. And if you want to look at another year where they had success, think of Deuce McBride's freshman year with Oscar and those guys. They struggled all Big 12 play, but turned it on at the end of the year, gave themselves an opportunity to beat number 1 Baylor at home, winning the tournament, feeling really good about themselves and more like we were going to get a berth when things were just, again, looking really bad. So 7 veterans are playing better. Just got to clean up the free throws. They cleaned up turnovers, got to clean up the free throws, do a little bit of better job on the boards. I don't say that killed them, but again, that last minute, but when you needed it, when free throws weren't working, you couldn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right there with the turnovers have been a very big problem for this team for much of the year. And in these last 2 games, 12 turnovers combined in between the two. So, that's an area they cleaned up. Bob Huggins talked about it in his post-game interview with Tony Caridi on the radio side of things. And surprisingly, he was fairly optimistic. He seemed like he was proud of how they played. Obviously didn't like the shot there at the end by Eric Stevenson, which was kind of a forced shot, but it seemed like he still believes in this team. And I mean, outside of some of the things that you just mentioned, I mean, for a fan base that has seen this before, like last year, for instance, where they got off to the really good start in non-conference play, Big 12 play just smacked them right in the face, and they were never able to recover. What about this team is different that gives you the belief that they can actually turn this around compared to what happened last year?
Well, they went down by 9 near the midway point of the second half, and last year's team would have folded. It would have been just a nightmare. They would have lost by 20 or more. This team didn't. They came back and fought. actually had a chance to take the lead there. And I think the last minute, or just under a minute left. And as good as Toussaint played, his free throw shooting has been atrocious these last few games, and he had a chance to take a 2 point lead at the free throw line, and he missed both free throws. Trey Mitchell, they missed 4 straight free throws in the first half or second half on that first West Virginia technical or that Oklahoma technical, and they missed four free throws on one trip down the floor. So that would have gave them the lead. Then they run it down three. They could have had the lead right then and there. So that would have been a big game changer. That would have been a huge momentum swing, and they didn't take advantage of it. So it really, to me, it was like free throws and the rebounding. Rebounding hasn't been bad. They've actually done really well in the Big 12, but for whatever reason, those long threes from Oklahoma, they just could not corral those in. They couldn't corral their own rebounds in. And you do have to credit Tanner Groves for Oklahoma. I mean, he is a solid player. He had another solid game today. As actually his worst outing that he's had against West Virginia. So I guess after almost having a double on him last year, they decided to guard him this year. But it's just a different group, and that's another example of there's a kid Tanner Groves that just put a hurting on West Virginia last year. He had his moment today with back-to-back threes, but they battled. The Sheffield kid, he had a good game. That's something that West Virginia is going to have to do better at is the guards. We thought kind of going in defensively with Keedy and Toussaint, they would do better on guards, but they're giving up too much cushion early. They've all recognized it. They all say it after the game that they're letting them get too comfortable. But it was another day where they just let these guards get too comfortable. And of course, you can make the argument as how it's officiated, but I didn't see a benefit one way or the other in that area, really. So if they're calling it close, do the same thing on the other end. I don't know why. I get some of the shots like Keontae George the other night were just good shots. There's not much you can do, but when you're allowing open ones, obviously that starts to add up. And they're going to go off of he went for 22 today and Keontae 32 the other day. You give 3 or 4 open shots around the arc, they're already in double digits, and then they work for the other half. So half those shots they don't have to work as hard for, and they're just putting up ridiculous.
Yeah, the one thing I kind of wanted to point out too is Trey Mitchell. Again, just the efficiency that he had offensively, 7 of 8 from the field, knocked down his only 3-point attempt. I know the free throw shooting has not been there the last couple of games, which is kind of an oddity considering he's been an 85% free throw shooter for the majority of the year. But is there going to have to come a point in time where he's just going to have to start taking more authority on the offensive end?
Yes. There's times where he's shooting over double teams in the paint. You'd like to see them work more, but the opponent's obviously trying to take him out as well. So it's not just a matter of, hey, just get him the ball. You got to get him the ball in right spots. Getting the ball 10 feet behind the arc isn't going to do you any good. So they're working on it. It just goes back to this is 7 new guys playing together. They haven't played together before. They're slowly figuring it out. We mentioned the turnovers. The ball still sticks a little bit. But you saw today Eric working with Trey on that 2-man game. Talked about that early in the year about, hey, man, you guys can both hit, pick and pop, pick and roll. You have both the options with those two. And you saw Eric working with Trey today. Eric hasn't shot the ball, but he was dishing it to the open guy. So you're seeing the progress. It's slowly beginning. Again, it's 5 games in. It's rough 0-5, but this team hasn't quit. They're definitely frustrated, but I wouldn't quite give up on the Mountaineers right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you think about it. This league is loaded from top to bottom. There's really not going to be a situation where you're going to suffer a bad loss in this slate. So you're going to have chances to get big time wins on this resume. And we've talked about it before. I mean, you may not even have to get to 6 or 7 wins in Big 12 conference play to get, or maybe you only need 6 or 7 to get into the tournament because of how strong this conference is. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, at 0-4, they're still 29th.
Yeah,
And then at 0-4, they're not going to fall much more after this. So you start collecting some wins, they're going to be right there. And they're so close to just turning that page. Once they start, they just need one game where they see some free throws go back to back, and then everyone mentally will be right back in it, and they'll be fine. Luckily, the free throws hasn't dictated their play on the court. They haven't got down and continue to battle, and that's something else. They're just going to have to shoot through it, and we'll see what happens here in the next week.
Yeah, we've seen this. I think I can't remember what year it was. It was a couple of years ago where they started off could not make a free throw, and then all of a sudden, some point in the middle of the season,
I
they
think
got
that was Deuce's last year. It
yeah,
was his last
started to
year.
click, and it's like, okay, wow, this is a completely a different type team shooting the free throws. So yeah, it can definitely be fixed. Lastly, before we get out of here, wanted to just briefly touch on Larry Harrison. Spent 24 years with Bob Huggins as an assistant coach, 16 of those years here at West Virginia. How does this team go about in terms of the coaching staff? How do they handle this moving forward? And then as the team in terms of the players, how difficult is that to lose kind of another father figure during the middle of a season where you're already struggling?
I mean, it's crazy. To be honest, I was actually surprised on how well this team played today, considering the turmoil surrounding. I mean, you just don't lose an assistant coach, and speculation is running wild all over the place on what really happened behind the scenes. But I, I I don't know how much it affected them. You're trying to really get in their headspace, and you could probably ask them, and they're probably going to play it off, play it down. You know, that they're not going to allow that to bother them publicly. But it was an interesting move. It'd be nice to know the details, a little bit of transparency. Probably not going to get that.
Yeah.
So let the rumor mills fly on what happened. And I've seen just name
Awful,
a
awful.
situation, name a situation that's floating out there right now. So it's tough. It's tough to lose a guy like that. You know, he was the guy that brought the guys in, got them settled in. And you know, we talked about these all being new guys. They may not have the relationship as maybe some of the former players had that were here 2, 3, 4 years plus when they were here under Harrison. So it may not have an effect on, you know, this happened 4 years ago where we had guys that were in the program for a long time. May it affect them a little more. Probably doesn't affect this group as much, but as much as that they're around each other, I'm sure it messed with them a little bit. But I didn't feel like that was anything today with what was going on. You know, to me, there's still stupid decisions, but they're still playing hard, and I feel like they still took a little step forward throughout today.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably thinking more so guys like Keedy Johnson, who's been in the program for a while, Evan Matthews, who had been here and then transferred out, came back. So those types of guys definitely. I don't know about how some of these other transfers viewed him or their connection with him during the recruitment process. So, but yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us today. West Virginia again falling to Oklahoma 77-76. They are now 10-7 on the year, 0-5 in Big 12 conference play. We'll be back Wednesday night for West Virginia TCU, as that one will be tipping off on, I believe, ESPN Plus. Yeah, it's another ESPN Plus game. I know fans aren't happy about that, but we'll have the post game gear show for you. I'll be here. Chris will be at the WVU Coliseum. So make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Follow us on Twitter at Mountaineers Now as well. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll be back here Wednesday night. Take care.